You're the guest of honor.
Center, okay.
We'll block you out here.
Well, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're here today to raise awareness about a critical case that the Supreme Court has decided to take up. 303 Creative LLC versus Elenis. This case involves a business, a website design company, owned by Lori Smith, who is here with us today. Lori has a diverse set of clients, and she provides services to people of all different faiths, beliefs, and backgrounds. Lori would like to expand her business to include services for weddings. Lori's a Christian, and as such, she will only create websites for opposite-sex weddings. In other words, Lori wants to exercise her First Amendment right to freedom of expression in accordance with her own conscience. And in Colorado right now, she can't. Colorado wants to compel the speech of Christian artists and business owners who decline to use their God-given talents to celebrate events that run contrary to what their faith teaches. The Colorado law restricts the fundamental First Amendment rights of Lori and other business owners like her. And it doesn't just target Christians only. Consider it this way. Should a Muslim artist be compelled by the government to draw the image of Muhammad? Should Jewish artists be forced to create art that they consider to be anti-Semitic? Should a Democrat political firm be forced to take on Republican clients? Should left-wing newspaper columnists be forced to write conservative columns?
Yes.
No, 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 and as fun as it might be, no. The First Amendment is an incredible blessing.
Amen.
Which protects the rights of everyone to speak your mind. And the First Amendment isn't just about popular speech. The First Amendment is about unpopular speech as well. That's what it was created for. You don't need the First Amendment if nobody is offended at what you're saying, if nobody is unhappy with what you're saying. The First Amendment protection doesn't do anything then. It's only when someone says, I'm offended, I don't like that, I want to silence you, that's when you need the First Amendment. When those who are seeking to use government power to muzzle you, to silence opinions they don't like or that frighten them, or that challenge their own belief sets. And the First Amendment, by its terms, binds government. It doesn't bind private individuals. The law in Colorado, on the other hand, binds the individual, and it's unconstitutional. That's why my colleagues and I have submitted an amicus brief to the court, laying out a vigorous defense of our right to free speech. I'm hopeful we'll see a victory in this case, which would be a victory for free speech and for religious liberty of all Americans. And with that,
Here I am.
oh, there you are, Senator Marsha Blankford.
Thank you all for being here today, and I want to say thank you to my colleagues for their commitment to free speech. Now, Senator Cruz just mentioned something that is so vitally important, that the First Amendment is there not to bind the individual, but is there to bind the government. It is there to ensure individuals that they will have that freedom of speech. That is theirs. That is their right. So we stand here today in support of free speech. It is essential, and a win for Lori in this case is a win for everyone, because this is a reassurance and a confirmation to the American people that they enjoy that liberty and that right. Now, everyone has their right to express and hold their beliefs without having to get government permission. And that is essential to this argument. And the Constitution protects this for individuals, that is their right, that they can speak their mind even if it disagrees with government policy. So that is the essential nature. This is why we have filed the amicus brief. This is why we are standing in support of Lori and hopeful that there is a win for her in this case. And okay,
Thank you.
Congressman Lamborn is next.
Thank you, Senator Blackburn. Thanks for everyone who came here today. And I want to thank Representative Vicki Hartzler, Senator Cruz, Senator Lee, and Alliance Defending Freedom for working together to draft this amicus brief to the Supreme Court over here, asking it to rule in favor of free speech in the case of my fellow Coloradan, Lori Smith, and her design studio, 303 Creative. Lori is the pinnacle of the American dream. She's a hardworking small business owner who happily works with people from all walks of life. Since Lori took the leap of faith to start her business, 303 Creative, in 2012, she has worked to promote causes consistent with her beliefs and close to her heart, such as supporting children with disabilities, overseas missions, animal shelters, and supporting our nation's veterans. Unfortunately, when she wanted to expand her business to celebrate marriages, Colorado bureaucrats made it clear that she could not participate in this arena unless she went against her deeply held religious beliefs. Due to the so-called Colorado Anti-Discrimination Act, in order to create website designs for marriages, Lori would be forced to violate her beliefs that marriage is between a man and a woman, and she would have to create designs for same-sex couples. Sadly, this is not the first time that Colorado officials have attempted to silence free speech. These are the same bureaucrats who punished Masterpiece Cake shop owner Jack Phillips, who respectfully declined a request to create a custom-designed cake celebrating a same-sex wedding. Fortunately for Jack's case, the Supreme Court held in a 7-2 ruling that the state had acted with, quote, clear and impermissible hostility, unquote, toward Jack's religious beliefs, violating the First Amendment. Regardless if someone believes the same as Lori or not, the Constitution protects the government from telling her what to say. The First Amendment, as has been said, not only protects Americans' rights to speak and to express their views, but protects their freedom not to speak. If Lori's deeply held religious beliefs compel her from speaking in favor of same-sex marriage, then Colorado cannot force her or any other American with similar views to support that message. So finally, I want to say that I hope that when the Supreme Court hears Lori's case this fall, it will establish precedents that honors our Constitution. Our government should not have the power to silence or to compel creative expression under the threat of punishment. We're now going to hear from my fellow Coloradan, Lori Smith, and then several other of my House and Senate colleagues. Lori?
Thank you. Well, hello there.
Speak up.
Okay. Since I was a young girl, I've always loved to create things. I grew up in my mom's clothing boutique where I designed the graphics, her website, and background art murals for her shop. I hoped one day I would be able to open my own business. And that dream came true for me in 2012 when I started my own design studio, 303 Creative, in Denver, Colorado, where I specialize in custom graphics and websites. I left the corporate design world to start my own studio so that I could promote causes close to my heart and consistent with my beliefs. As artists, we all have areas we are particularly passionate about, and for me, some of those things include a heart for children with special needs, overseas missions, the beauty of marriage, animal shelters, and veterans. I wanted to wake up excited every day knowing that I would be using my talents and gifts to promote ideas and organizations I believed in. I've had the opportunity to create custom designs for clients in all walks of life, including those who identify as LGBT. Few things bring me more joy than getting to know a client and understanding what they're looking for me to express or promote. For me, it's never, never, never about the person who requests the design. It's always about what message they want expressed. Like other artists, I decide which projects I design based on my own area of expertise, my areas of interest, and the content being requested. It's very important to me that everything I design, I create, anything that I create, be consistent with my faith, which inspires and guides my life. After I started my own design studio, I was excited to expand my portfolio to create websites that celebrate marriage between a man and a woman. I've dreamed of designing for weddings since I worked in my mom's shop and later did my own wedding. But I was heartbroken to learn that Colorado has made it very clear I'm not welcome in that space. They're trying to force me to create messages that are inconsistent with my beliefs. While I fully embrace the beauty of God's design for marriage, I know that some people don't agree with that view. What's given me comfort when I've been afraid or harassed by those who don't agree with me is that I'm simply asking for the freedom for all of us to speak consistently with our beliefs. As I realized Colorado was trying to control what I say, I also saw Colorado use the same law to punish Masterpiece Cake Shop's owner, Jack Phillips. And I was really scared this could happen to me. I couldn't live in fear and not say what I believe, so I decided to challenge the law to protect my freedom and my design studio. I am immensely grateful that the Supreme Court, the highest court in the land, will hear my case this fall. I'm hopeful that they will rule in favor of free speech for all Americans. All of us should be free to say what we believe, even if the government disagrees with those beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Cruz, for hosting us today and these distinguished members of Congress who have steadfastly supported Lori and are doing so again before the U.S. Supreme Court. My name is Kristen Wagner, and I'm the General Counsel at Alliance Defending Freedom. I had the privilege of arguing Jack Phillips' case, and I will have the privilege of arguing Lori Smith's as well. Free speech is an inalienable human right, and it is the foundation for self-government. The government does not grant us this right, but thankfully, fortunately, our Constitution protects it. And we are stewards of that freedom. Yet over the past decade, we have seen that promise shattered for everyday Americans. In New Mexico, Elaine Photography was forced out of business. In Washington State, Baronelle Stutzman was forced to retire. In New York State, Emily Carpenter is facing jail time right now at the Second Circuit. Her case is pending. And as you've heard, Jack Phillips is back in court and has had to endure over 10 years now of litigation over this issue. But this issue and this case transcends simply the issue of marriage. No one should be compelled to speak a message that violates their core convictions under threat of government punishment. And Alliance Defending Freedom is grateful for the privilege of defending Lori's freedoms before the U.S. Supreme Court. You've already heard from Lori and from these members of Congress a little bit about this case and what Lori's perspective is. But right now I want to share with you the facts that have been agreed to in this case by Colorado as well as the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals. Stipulated facts. First, Lori's religious beliefs are sincere and they guide every aspect of her life. Second, Lori works with all people from all walks of life, including those who identify as LGBT. Third, the parties in the lower court agreed that Lori bases her decisions on the content of the message, not the person requesting it. And lastly, the parties have agreed, and the court below agreed, that Lori's speech is protected by the First Amendment because she is communicating a message. In spite of the agreement of these facts, the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals held in a 2-1 decision that Lori did not have protected speech and could be coerced to speak a message that she does not believe. That's a chilling holding. And as the Chief Judge Timkovich held in his dissent, it is a holding that is unprecedented as well as staggering in its scope. Our government's duty is to protect free speech, not to coerce it. And instead, we see some government officials misusing the law, threatening individuals with not just civil but criminal penalties, including jail time, if they dare to disagree with the government. And as you'd heard, if the government can force Lori to speak, it can do so with any one of us. From a Democrat speechwriter to write for President Trump, for an LGBT website designer to design and promote a website that has the Catholic Church's view of marriage. Also, to a pro-abortion photographer who will have to promote and photograph the March for Life. Lori's case before the Supreme Court illustrates exactly why we have a First Amendment: to prevent officials from eliminating ideas from the public square and to stop them from banishing people who don't agree with the government. Lori's an amazing artist. She's a kind and compassionate individual, and it is truly a privilege to represent her at Alliance Defending Freedom and to argue her case.
Thank you, Kristen. It is an honor to be here today, standing on behalf of Lori. You know, the strength of our nation is built upon the freedoms afforded to Americans under our Constitution. And behind me, our Second Amendment rights are currently under attack from Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and the Democrats. But across the street, free speech and religious liberty are being threatened at the Supreme Court. That's why I joined my colleagues today in defense of these foundational principles, just as our founding fathers did before us. 237 years ago, James Madison proclaimed, "The religion of every man must be left to the conviction and conscience of every man, and it is the right of every man to exercise it as these may dictate." He was right then, and he's right today. But this is not the first time in recent memory that attacks on our religious liberty have been brought to the steps of the Supreme Court. Thankfully, in 2018, Jack Phillips' freedom of religion prevailed. But as was said, he is now being brought back into court. Lori Smith's case should be no different. Let's be clear. Hardworking business owners such as Lori should never be punished under the law for choosing to create products consistent with her deeply held religious convictions. She is protected by our Constitution and has the right to live out her faith in the public square, not have her deeply held beliefs disgracefully violated by the state. I urge the justices to reaffirm our core civil liberties and stand with Lori and the millions of Americans who wish to simply practice their faith without fear.
Thanks. Lori, thanks for being here. This is a long, hard journey. You're not used to facing cameras, you're used to doing design, and to be able to deal with all the questions and the issues on the most basic belief. That is, I want to be able to live my faith. Listen, this case is not that hard. It's a very simple, straightforward issue. Can the state of Colorado compel someone to speak something they don't believe in? Can the state of Colorado say, I have a faith and you have to practice my faith, you can't practice your faith? If your faith is different than mine, then you are compelled to be able to practice my faith. Can the state of Colorado do that? Take all the names and faces out of that, all of us would nod our head and say, well, that's absurd. The Constitution protects the right of every individual to have a faith, live their faith, change their faith, or have no faith. And any American can do any of those things. I can't compel a person with no faith to suddenly say Jesus is Lord because I believe Jesus is Lord. I can't compel someone that doesn't believe that to be able to say that as a government official. A government official can't reach into someone else and to say, I'm going to compel what you say and how you actually demonstrate your work. That's not how it works in America. We allow every person to be able to have a faith, change their faith, choose a different faith at any time, or to be able to have no faith at all and all be protected and all be respected as Americans. So the reason that I got involved in this case is this is a case that needs to come to the Supreme Court to be able to clarify across the entire nation, because we're finding bullies in government using their power to say, I believe one thing and it disagrees with you, but I'm in government, so I'm going to compel you to speak my view. That's a bully. That's not someone protecting the rights of individuals. In my state of Oklahoma, we have a great diversity of opinion on marriage, on all kinds of different issues. But we allow each other to be able to thrive in that and respect each other's differences in that of opinion. Because we're fellow Oklahomans, we're fellow Americans. We believe the Supreme Court is taking up this case because they want to articulate to every single state, every American has the right to be able to live their faith, have a faith, and to be able to practice that on a day-to-day basis. And no state, no government should bully them into changing how they speak or what they say based on their preferences. That's why we have a First Amendment, and I'm proud to be a part of the cert process to be able to challenge this to the Supreme Court and to be able to speak out for the rights of Lori and for millions of other people that may agree or disagree with Lori that also want to make sure their rights are protected as well.
Thank you. Very well said. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. I'm Congresswoman Debbie Lesko from the great state of Arizona. I want to thank Alliance Defending Freedom for taking up this case and also for defending Americans across the nation for their constitutional rights. And I sincerely thank you, Lori, for standing up for what you believe in, taking the hits, taking the criticism, but keeping on going. It's very important that there are Americans like you that stand up for what we believe in. I also want to thank the U.S. Supreme Court for taking up this case. It's very important to the future of our nation. Radicals in a growing number of Democrat-controlled states are taking away Americans' freedom of speech. In Lori's case, the state of Colorado is forcing her to either express a message that is against her closely held religious beliefs or stay silent and not make a living. That is not a choice any American should have to endure. Yesterday, in a meeting here at the Capitol, I heard from a former NBA player. He said that when he first came to America, one of his fellow NBA players criticized an elected official, and he couldn't believe it. He said to him, "Why did you do that? Because you're going to be punished or put in prison or maybe killed," because the country he came from, that's what they did. And as he lived more in the United States, he realized that the United States is unique in that we have freedoms, including our freedom of speech and our freedom to practice our faith. He even named his last name Freedom. He changed his name to Freedom. Freedom is America. Freedom is what's represented in the U.S. Capitol right behind us today. Freedom is why millions of people from all over the nation come here, because they have constitutional rights. Sadly, radicals want to change the very soul of our nation and are trying to take those freedoms away. Colorado and other Democrat-run states have shown an unnerving enthusiasm for prosecuting people of faith. Their laws mimic totalitarian regimes, not the United States. I pray that our U.S. Supreme Court justices rule in favor of Lori Smith. I pray that the U.S. Supreme Court justices rule in the favor of freedom. Thank you. God bless you. And may God continue to bless America.